So hello everyone, I am filming on my new phone today rather than my laptop, which I normally used to film on. So it's been a bit of adjusting to try and get the camera set up right, and I've no idea how the sound is going to turn out or how the quality is going to look. I'm also finding it really weird to look at the camera directly because normally the bit that I look at is like directly in line with where the image of me is on the screen, so I keep finding myself looking off to the left instead of at the camera. I will try and keep looking in the right place. We will see how this goes. Anyway, as you'll have seen from the title of this video, this is going to be my October reading wrap up. I have 6 books to talk to you about today, and I've mentioned a couple of them before in currently reading videos and reading goal videos, but hopefully I have kept enough fresh about these books that this will still be interesting for you if you have seen those other videos. So the first book to talk about today is The Time Machine by H.G. Wells. As you can see, this is quite a thin book. It's just over 100 pages, I think. This was first published in 1895. It is about a time machine and this man who goes forward to the future. I was interested to read it because it is an early sci-fi novel and H.G. Wells gets referenced a lot and his works get referenced a lot, and I was curious to read this one, but I actually ended up really not enjoying it. The time traveller gets to this far-flung future where there's no more humans, buildings have kind of collapsed and disappeared, and he's facing a brand new civilization. He discovers these short people-like creatures and gives them a name, and he makes all these assumptions about, oh, this must have happened because of these developments of humankind. Their life got so easy and they degenerated into this, and their height was lowered because of this, and they act a certain way because of this or that. And I just thought his ideas were just ridiculous. And I get that it was written over 100 years ago, but the logic and reasoning that the time traveller has put into saying, oh, I assumed that they developed this way because of this, is just not logical. It's making so many assumptions, and assumptions based on previous assumptions, that I just thought it was a bit silly. And he does that throughout the book, and I found it really, really annoying. It's a really slow book, and it took me ages to read this because it's quite heavy going. I wasn't feeling any need to rush on and find out what happened next. It was quite a struggle. The next book I want to talk about, though, was one that I got on with much better, and that was An Absolutely Remarkable Thing by Hank Green. Hank Green is the brother of John Green. Together they have a YouTube channel called Vlog Brothers, which I've watched on and off for a few years, and this is Hank's debut novel. It is one of those books where there's only certain elements of it that I can talk about without giving away plot points. It begins with a girl who is in her early 20s. She is living in New York City. She has been to an art school. And one night on her way home, at the very beginning of the book, she is walking home after a shift that finished very late, and she sees this cool statue built on the pavement. She's not heard anything about the installation of it, so she thinks, hey cool, this is an art project, rings up her friend who's around the corner, and he comes out and films her talking about it. Gets home, goes to sleep, and wakes up the next day to discover their video has gone completely viral because these things, which have become nicknamed Carls, because she at random chooses to call it Carl in the video they make, the Carls have appeared all over the world and no one knows where they came from. They're a big mystery, and as a book it kind of is dealing with the mystery and investigating things, and it's also looking at fame and internet fame and the effect of fame on someone's life when they've been a perfectly ordinary person and then get very famous very quickly. It is frustrating to not be able to talk about the big plot points in here, but I really think that it is a book that you will enjoy best if you go into it not knowing the answers to some of the questions that are raised in the early chapters. There's some is it or isn't it things, and I think it's best if they are discovered as a surprise. I didn't know much about it going in, and it was a really enjoyable reading experience. If you've read this, I would love to hear from you. The next book to mention is Sunshine by McKinley. I have talked about this a lot on my channel in the past because it is one of my favourite books that I will reread again and again. It is about a young woman called Sunshine, or nicknamed Sunshine. She works in a bakery. She lives in a world that's like our world, I think somewhere in North America, but humanity has been affected by the fact that there are a lot of vampires, werewolves, and other supernatural creatures of that ilk around. Vampires are very dangerous in this world. On one night, she goes out for a drive to visit the old lake house that she used to go to as a kid with her grandparents, and she is kidnapped by vampires. And the story kind of goes from there and follows how she escapes, how her life is affected by it afterwards, and what she discovers about herself along the way. I find it a really enjoyable read. I love the storytelling manner that Robert McKinley has in this. I just find it really nice, comforting reading. The next book I'm going to mention briefly is Conversations with Friends by Sally Rooney. I don't have this to show you as I borrowed it from a colleague and have now given it back. I did not like this book at all. I've heard people rave about it and I was a little curious to see what it's like. I got about 70 pages in and I decided that I had better books to be reading with my time from the 100 odd that I have sitting on my shelves than to bother slogging through something that I wasn't enjoying. It is about a woman who has recently finished university. She's living in Ireland. I think she's in Dublin. Along with her best friend, the two of them strike up a friendship with this woman who is a photographer, and through her they end up meeting the woman's husband as well. The main character, who is narrating the story, begins an affair with the husband, while her best friend also seems to be trying to get something started with the wife, the photographer. And to me, it just felt like young people making really silly decisions, and I couldn't empathise with them. I've done my own time of making silly decisions, and I was not really interested in reading anyone else's, frankly. They weren't characters I was interested in hearing any more about, so I stopped with that one. Then I finished an ebook that I had got for review from NetGalley from the publisher Canongate, and that was The Way of All Flesh by Ambrose Parry. This is a debut from Ambrose Parry, but I discovered after I finished it that that is actually the pseudonym for a writing duo, which is Christopher Brookmyre, who is a Scottish crime writer. He normally writes contemporary crime, and I've read some of his books, and his wife, who is an anaesthesiologist and has not written any books before. This is the first in a series. It is set in the 1800s in Edinburgh and is around the time that scientists were working to find ways to anaesthetise their patients for operations. And I think it was initially inspired by some of the things that Chris Brookmyre's wife, whose name I'm forgetting, had read about as she was writing her PhD or dissertation or something along those lines. And you can really see the medical knowledge shining through in the book. It's also a bit of a mystery. It's narrated by two people, a young man who has been studying medicine and is now apprenticed to a man who works as a midwife. And it's also told from the point of view of a young woman working in the house of this eminent doctor. At the start of the book, the young man discovers a prostitute who he had felt like he was becoming friends with has been killed, he believes murdered, but there's no investigation because of her profession. So over the course of the book, he is trying to find out what happened to her, and there is also the developments in the discovery of various types of anaesthesia. So they're discovering something called ether, they discover chloroform later in the book, and it was a really, really interesting read. I went to university in Edinburgh, and the city just comes alive in the book. It's really well described, and I found it a really, really enjoyable book. I really wanted to find out who was doing some murdering and what was going to happen next with various aspects, and I'm very much looking forward to the second book in the series coming out. The final book to talk to you about is American Gods by Neil Gaiman. This is a book about a man who is released from prison and quickly finds that his life is not going to go back to how he thought it was. Instead, he is roped into helping a man called Mr. Wednesday, as this man goes around the country trying to convince other old gods that they need to come and help him fight a war against the new gods. And the old gods are various gods from other religions who were brought to America by people who were worshipping them in the past, and now their power is fading away as fewer and fewer people worship them. They feel like they are under threat from the new gods like technology and media and things like that. It was a really, really interesting look at what makes religion and different beliefs in a way. And also I just loved having lots of these people, lots of these gods as characters. They were really, really interesting to read about. It's a fairly slow and steady paced book, but at no point in it did I feel bored. And considering that it is a pretty chunky book, it's about 600 pages, I think that's quite good going for it. It's slow and steady, but like building, and I really, really enjoyed it. And again, if you've read that, I would love to hear from you. Those are the books that I read in October. If you've read any of them, let me know, and I'd love to hear what you have been reading recently. I will talk to you very soon. Bye!